If you like what you're about to hear, please consider leaving a review, or liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube. I don't have a Patreon or enable ads for this, so if you really like Oldex, please do contact Games Workshop on social media or via email, and tell them you want me to narrate their audiobooks for realsies. Oldex. Codex Chaos Space Marines, 4th edition. Pages 25 to 27. Forces of Chaos. The Law. Part 1. Written by Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore. Narrated by R.J. Bailey. With great thanks to Alistair for donating this copy of Codex Chaos Space Marines. A note from me, R.J., hello there. I don't normally talk like this, by the way. This is just my narrator voice. I can do multiple. I can do different voices if you want me to do this. Hello, how about this fight? Would you like me to do it this way? Oh, okay. I guess we're doing it this way now. Right. So, we've come to that point in the Codex again, where it's an army list with a lot of God, my accent's really slipping. With a lot of unit entries with stats attached to them. Now, when we did this with the Codex Tyranids, 4th edition, last season, right, I just went full hog. I went in there, pedal to the metal. I just did all the lore and all the stats, and we ended up with like a hour and a half long episode. Now, I canvassed your feedback, dear listener, and a lot of you told me that maybe it would be worthwhile splitting them up. So you do just the lore, and then maybe you could do an episode with the stats. So, and I thought that's pretty good then, because if you want the lore and not the stats, then you can just have the lore. But there were some people who said, listen, fella, I quite like the stats. And as some people commented, I'm thinking of someone in particular right now that I've just realised might find this accent very offensive, so I apologise. It's not meant to be insulting. It's just not very good. There's a difference. It's just a bad accent, not meant to be insulting. Anyway, people said they quite liked my all the stats being read out, in a kind of way that like the shipping forecast. In the way people used to listen to that, it was very soothing and almost with an ASMR-like quality, a bit of chewing gum for the ears, so to speak. So some of them wanted me to keep the stats and stuff. So what I'm going to do is, as Oldex continues to evolve over all the seasons, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that out, and then you can tell me if you like this way. So I'm going to do the lore for all of the army entries that are there, and then what I'm going to do is I'll do one with just the stats. So we'll keep them separated instead of one long super episode. Is that all right? So you're going to get the stats. We'll do all the lore first, all of that, and then we'll do the stats in its own episode or episodes. There'll be numerous lore episodes because I've had an upheaval recently in my life. And frankly, I need to spend more time doing the voiceover that I'm paid for at the moment rather than this. So I'm going to split the lore up over several episodes, and then what's going to happen is I'm then going to do the stats. Depending how long the stats take, that might be 1 or 2 episodes or 3, maybe just 1. We'll see what my time's like, because we're just going to have to burn that bridge when we come to it, so to speak. So this is going to be the lore. I hope you've not found this accent too insulting. Remember, it's not meant to be offensive. It's just a poor reflection on my meager abilities. That's all. I'm just crap at it. Okay, we're going to kick off now with I've gone a bit West Country now. I've slipped right into West Country. So I guess we're going to kick off into this week's episode of Oldex, which is going to be right down in the farm. Codex Chaos Space Marines unit entries, the lore, part 1. Forces of Chaos. The lore. Marks of Chaos. Most Chaos Space Marines worship chaos in all its glory, which means they dedicate their lives to the 4 greater powers of chaos: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, with equal fervor. If a model is given the mark of one of the 4 greater powers of chaos, this means that the warrior has been claimed as its own by one of the 4, and given special powers in return. Chaos Space Marines. The Space Marines were created as the Emperor's ultimate fighting force. Implanted with the gene seed of the Primarchs, Space Marines are giant warriors that stand 7 feet tall, with thickened bones, 2 hearts, hyper-dense muscles, and all manner of special organs that allow them to survive and fight in the most hostile conditions. They feel little pain and heal wounds at a remarkable rate. They have the best equipment, including formidable power armor that boosts their already considerable strength and protects them against all but the most destructive weapons. Their will is hardened with constant training and fighting, and the Space Marines battle with dedication and zeal, brooking no hesitation, mercy, or cowardice. Their weapons, armor, and vehicles are highly suited to their shock role. All of these things combine to make the Space Marines the most fearsome warriors in the Imperium. The Chaos Space Marines have all of these strengths and skills, to which are added the power of chaos and a brutal devotion to the Chaos Gods. Ever since the Horus Heresy, Space Marines have been tempted by the path of chaos, whether for selfish reasons or greater ideals. Sundered from the Imperium, having turned their backs on the Emperor, these super warriors know that there can be no peace for them, no forgiveness, nor absolution. They are wholly committed to the path they now tread, for good or ill. The armament of the Chaos Space Marines differs little from that of their loyalist counterparts. The bolt gun is their primary weapon, in various marks dating back 10,000 years, though squads that glorify close combat and personal combat often favor the bolt pistol and a knife, sword, or axe. Many squads supplement these basic weapons with various grenades and other war gear. Chaos Space Marine squads sometimes also use heavier weaponry, such as las cannons, heavy bolters, and autocannons, and they have access to specialized weapons in the form of flamers, melters, and plasma guns. Much of the organization and structure of the squad's former legion or chapter has disappeared, and in place of appointed sergeants, the Chaos Space Marines follow the strongest, boldest, and most brutal of their brothers. These blood-soaked soldiers seek to become the favored of the gods, and so are known as aspiring Chaos Champions. Their war gear varies dramatically, including weapons taken as trophies from slain foes, as well as arcane equipment carefully maintained since the Horus Heresy. They are fearsome fighters, always at the forefront of the squad, urging them on to greater feats in the eyes of the Chaos Gods. Chaos Icons. Most Chaos Space Marines worship the Chaos Gods in equal measure, giving praise to and asking favors from Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh with no preference. There are some squads, though, who dedicate their lives and souls to a single god. As a body of warriors, they take up the symbol of their god, his mark of chaos, and the deeds they perform are done in their god's name alone. Squads with the mark of Khorne are ferocious fighters in close combat. Squads dedicated to Tzeentch benefit from the arcane magical protection of their master. Those sworn to Nurgle can withstand incredible injuries and survive, while those marked by Slaanesh have heightened senses that allow them to act and react with incredible speed. Havocs. Some Chaos Space Marine squads carry a high proportion of heavy weapons to lay down supporting fire for their brethren. Known as Havocs, these squads provide devastating anti-infantry and anti-armor firepower, and dominate large swathes of the battlefield with their merciless volleys of fire.
Havocs often employ Rhino troop transports. This allows a Havoc squad to speedily claim high ground or some other strategically important vantage point, from which they can decimate the enemy with their heavy weapons. A Chaos Rhino also allows Havocs to redeploy rapidly, should all their targets be destroyed or an enemy assault is imminent. In this way, Havocs always stand ready to lend their supporting firepower. The Chosen. The most experienced and dedicated Chaos Space Marines are the Chosen, and other Chaos Space Marines see them as being particularly favored by the ruinous powers. Chosen are even more hard-bitten, callous, and deadly than other Chaos Space Marines, and think nothing of sacrificing the lives of their comrades to increase their own standing with the gods. Squads of chosen Chaos Space Marines have many decades, often centuries, of combat experience, and have learnt how to make best use of cover to survive the battlefields of the 41st millennium. These highly experienced and ferocious warriors are typically in the vanguard of any attack, fighting from the front where they can earn the most glory and take the greatest spoils. Sometimes the Chosen will use their battle skills to infiltrate enemy lines and set up ambushes, or outflank an enemy army to launch surprise attacks on the opposition's strong points. Chaos Bikers. Well-armed and highly mobile, Chaos Space Marine bikers make excellent reconnaissance troops and are used to launch deadly raids behind enemy lines. Chaos Space Marine bikes are rugged vehicles with large engines that are powerful enough to carry their heavily armored riders. They are fitted with on-board weaponry that can be fired by the rider without him needing to relinquish control of his machine, and they are often festooned with blades and spurs that are used to cut and snare opponents as the rider smashes past. Even amongst the ruthless Chaos Space Marines, bikers have a reputation for cruelty. They are merciless in pursuit of an enemy, following a vanquished foe for many miles to kill or capture them, or in the hope that they will lead the bikers to fresh victims and plunder. Chaos Power Armor. At the time of the Heresy, Crusade pattern armor had all but disappeared from the legions, having been replaced by the much more improved Codex pattern, with the exception of those legions still fighting on the eastern fringe. Even so, over the fierce battles to come, both sides were forced to reinstate older marks of armor to replace their losses, as well as scavenging and cannibalizing armor from the battlefields. The armor of the legions of the Eye of Terror reflects these turbulent times, often featuring distinctive studded and riveted plasteel plates rather than the smooth ceramite of later designs. Exposed power cables remain a common feature, and many Chaos Space Marines individualize their armor with crests, horns, skulls, and chains. Quite often, a Chaos Space Marine's armor will have been changed by long exposure to the warp. It might sprout spines or bony ridges, be covered in a layer of scales, or flicker within coruscating energy. Competition for new or replacement armor parts is fierce. Space Marines who have only recently turned renegade may have armor that is almost untouched from their chapter livery, except for the defilement or removal of symbols of allegiance to the Emperor. Some Chaos Space Marines thus have the advanced Mark 8 armor, which is much coveted by their fellow Chaos Marines, and earns them extra prestige.
You have been listening to Oldex, Codex Chaos Space Marines, 4th edition, pages 25 to 27. Forces of Chaos, The Lore, Part 1, written by Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore, narrated by me, R.J. Bailey, with great thanks to Alistair for donating this copy of Codex Chaos Space Marines. I don't have a Patreon or enable ads for this, so if you really like Oldex, please do contact Games Workshop on social media or via email and tell them you want me to narrate their audiobooks for realsies. Thank you to Gav Thorpe and Alessio Cavatore for writing the fiction I grew up with. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a review where you found it, or like, share and subscribe on YouTube, depending how you're listening. This production, like all of Oldex, is entirely unofficial and uncommercial. From an out-of-print publication, is a derivative work with all copyrights owned by Games Workshop, and is a celebration of the hobby and lore I grew up with. If you have suggestions for other old Codex fiction for me to narrate on this podcast, you can comment, contact me on Twitter at rjbailey, or email robertjbailey@gmail.com. Links are in the show description. Alright, my lover,